Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of ECH Postgame Live. This one following a 3-0 loss against the Ottawa Senators. The Kraken end up getting shut out in the entire season series versus Ottawa, and it was at time a lifeless game from the Kraken, and 2 points they really couldn't afford to lose out on. So some stuff to break down in this one, but the big story, though, is that the Kraken kind of come out flat. And after allowing a rough first goal in this one, and really didn't look any better after that. So this game and the next one against Chicago are kind of the easiest bit of the stretch that's coming up ahead. They lose out on 2 points here. It just makes the margin for error a little bit slimmer here. But and a lot of people I see in chat already, I feel like I've seen this movie before. It's like kind of, you could just use the last Ottawa post game. It did feel a lot like that last game against the Ottawa Senators. Maybe it's something with how the team matches up with Ottawa, but I don't think that's really the story here and the answer here, because the Kraken, look, they didn't look great, but I thought they looked okay until the first Ottawa goal, and then they just kind of fell apart. I don't know why they reacted in that way, and I see some people, even Kyle, asking, are we still sick? Looked sick in that second period. I say we're sick. If that was the case, though, they didn't look sick to start this one. And so that's what I'm wondering is, why was that first goal? And I get it's a soft goal, and maybe that is the kind of demoralizing goal that does take so much out of a team. But from that point on, it was a different game. And the Kraken looked good in the first period. They outshot Ottawa. The chances were about 50-50. And then after that goal, the Kraken were just lifeless for the whole rest of the game, including, I think, like an 18-minute stretch where they didn't even have a single shot on goal. That included a power play. Just not a good effort from the Kraken tonight, and they're going to need to play even better going forward to try and make up for this one. We'll get right into chat here. And by the way, actually, Dylan is back in the building. So that was, I think, the best part of tonight, at least for me, is having Dylan back in the arena and be able to watch the game with me. So he is down talking to the players, talking to Coach Dan, and trying to get some takeaways from this one. So he's going to be joining us in a little bit. I do wonder how much time, because after a loss like this, usually it's really short or really long before the second person will join post game. So we'll see if we get the quick answers from the guys or if it's a little bit more drawn out. We'll kind of wait and see on that, but let's jump right into chat here. And we've got Schultz, bring back Mahura. I'm with you. I've said I've been a big Will Borgen defender ever since year one, but he is being outplayed by Josh Mahura, or at least he has been this season. I would like to see Borgen kind of get that healthy scratch reset. I talked about it on the last podcast. I'm with you. Bring back Josh Mahura. Shane O'Wright, back-to-back home games, putting out a brutal product on the ice. Unacceptable. At least the last game, the Kraken had the, I don't know if you want to call it an excuse, but they were facing one of the best teams in the NHL. And so Tampa's a really darn good team. And so that's kind of what a good team will do to you some nights. Ottawa's beatable. They are a beatable team. The Kraken showed they could hang with them in the first period. This one is, there's really no excuses for this one. Except, and then Kyle asking if we're still sick. Even if that is the case, I don't understand the quick change after that first goal. Stacy, that was soul crushing. And then Schultz, lose to the Sens and Hawks, beat Knights and Avs would be very Kraken hockey. Yes, it would. That's the other issue that's kind of brought up by this game again is, are the Kraken a team that plays up or down to their competition? As we suspected they might be. They played pretty well against some good teams in the last week or two. We hadn't really seen them play a bad team for a while. Ottawa, I'd say, is a little bit better than a bad team, but as the opponent gets worse, the Kraken get worse. Maybe there is something to that. Not one, but 2 games this season shut out 3-0 by the Sens. Freaking ouch. I know this reminded me a lot of that other Sens game. Senators getting the shutout in the season series, unfortunately. Let's see. Jeremy, pretty depressing game. Couldn't score on the Senators again. Too many low danger effort and shots. I'm glad you brought that up, Jeremy, because that was the other big thing for me in this one. And I was talking to Dylan about it from the first period on. The Kraken not able to beat Linus Ullmark, and Ullmark had a good game. He was on top of his game. And when a good goalie like that is playing well, if they can see a shot, they're going to stop it. If they have the chance to react and reflexes come into play, they're going to stop that shot. So what you have to do to get around a goalie playing like that is to get traffic to the front of the net, set up screens where the goalie can't see the puck, tips where the goalie can't react fast enough, or rebounds where the goalie's already out of position. I mean, Dylan and I have talked about this for years on post games on the podcast about things you can do to generate offense. The Kraken had no net front presence in this one. And I thought that might be the most disappointing part of this one for me, is because I thought it was clear kind of from the beginning that the net front presence was kind of what you needed to do to beat Linus Ullmark. And they just never came up with it, even on the power play. That's what got me, is the power play in the third period, where the Kraken, they didn't get a shot on goal to start with, but they kept trying to work the puck down low. They were trying to be really cute with it. They were trying to create the perfect cross ice pass down low. And if that's what the opponent's giving you, fine. But the Sens weren't really giving that to them. And given how Ullmark's playing, just create some traffic in front of the net. With the power play, you have the extra man where you can do that. They can't cover everybody. You can get a free screener on the goalie and just fire away. And the Kraken never really did that. So I don't like the lack of net front presence tonight. That was a big factor in this game, in my opinion. B, like ECH, also echoes the Lightning game, absolutely dominating the beginning of the game, at least in terms of shot quantity, and completely losing all steam the rest of the way. It does feel like this team is, a little bit more fragile mentally than they were even a couple of weeks ago. And maybe that's a result of being sick. Maybe that is kind of fatigue setting in, where if things don't go your way right away, then you kind of fall apart. That would make sense if they are tired, if they are sick, but still is a worrying trend to see. Amanda, I'll say it, Ullmark, pretty good at hockey, and you do have to hand it to him to an extent. Their goalie had a pretty darn good game, but there are ways to create chances that no goalie can stop, to take a goalie completely out of the game. Shane O'Wright, why do we play such a soft brand of hockey? Will it ever change? I think it's part of the way this team is built and constructed. There's certain things that Ron Francis looks for in a roster, and size, net front presence isn't really one of them. And Dylan was talking to me in this game. It was so nice to have him back, because he points out a lot of these things that I don't always notice. But he was saying that the Sens, they have some tall guys, but they don't have that many big players. And that if you contest, and that the Senators will initiate contact, but if you stand up to that contact, stand your ground, and go push back, they won't do anything about it. And early on in the game, he noticed Ty Karche box out 2 players by himself. And it's really just the will to stand in there and get to those areas. Against some teams, they can push you out, but the Sens really can't do that. And the Kraken just didn't have the will to stand in there. When will it change? When new players arrive, that's when it'll change. Sean says, trade Borgen, do something. This is unacceptable. Yes, Ullmark, it was good, but we all know that was a pitiful effort from a Kraken team. And let's face it, Ottawa, like most teams, had more talent. I do wonder what's coming, if there is some kind of shakeup coming for the team. I think at least a scratch or something, because they didn't change the lineup after the Tampa game. Can't imagine we'll see the same lineup next game against Chicago. Draper, saving the goals versus the Sens for next season. Terrible Lotus, everything was wrong, including Forsland being congested, the crowd being quiet, and a few broadcasting weirdnesses, and the team being off. Interesting. I obviously didn't have the chance to watch the broadcast, but I heard from a few people that Forsland sounded congested. I don't know if he's dealing with something, but it feels like everybody is this time of year. I was sick, as you all know, a couple weeks ago. So there's stuff that's just going around. And as far as everything being off too, look, it's silly. I'm not actually making a serious point here, but the windows down there broke right before the Anaheim game, the curtains in front of the big glass windows at Climate Pledge Arena. And the Kraken, I think, are 0-4-1 since they broke. And I think they were like 7-4-1 or something before that this season. There's no curse, obviously. That's not how it works, but it does feel like everything's been a little bit off here, at least in this building, since those windows broke. They're 1-4-1. They got the win against Boston. Let's see. Jenna, Monty's save and Joey's near assist were the only highlights for me. Oh, and a cool Trapper hat. Low energy team equals low energy crowd. I'm with you, Jenna, especially with the low energy team equals low energy crowd, because it was a bit of a low energy crowd tonight, but just the team didn't really give them much to work with. I know there were even a couple of rushes in the second period, I think with the Kraken down 2-0, where They just had a rush. They had like a 3-on-2 or something, and the crowd wanted to get into it. You could feel the noise building and hyping up. And then I think it was the one where Tanev just completely missed the pass across to whoever he was going for. And it just, everybody sank back down and the energy just really wasn't in the building there. And then I do want to talk about, Monty's save and Joey's near assist, because those were a couple cool moments. We'll start with the Montour save. I mean, he went into goalie mode. He even choked up on his stick and did the whole goalie pose, and he got a piece of it with the skate. So that was kind of cool. Save of the game in my book. And then Joey's near assist. That was a gorgeous pass. Like, that is so much harder in goalie gear than he makes it look. Joey's puck handling is truly special. And if Karche could put that in, I think that's a totally different game. But it's so impressive to me too, because I don't know how you even, if you're Joey, right? They're dumping the puck in. How are you even looking up ice? You have to focus on this puck being dumped in on you, stopping that puck, putting it down. When do you have time to get your eyes up and see Ty Karche and know exactly where he's going to be and then hit him in stride? It's just so impressive. So that's a positive. Let's see. Kimber didn't get to watch. Guess I didn't miss us doing anything. Yeah, if you're going to miss a game, this one was a pretty good one. Fusion makes Kraken shoot like they're playing catch. Okay, here it comes. I'm winding up. Are you ready? Or like a video game parry tutorial. Yeah, I mean, there is an element of predictability to the shooting, but again, if you can just get players to the front of the net, get that net front presence, you can work with that. It's not necessarily a problem. Sean, this team is what it is. It is what it has been. Is what it is what it will be until something changes in the front office. I mean, there are certain limitations to what this roster is. We've kind of gone over that. It's, there's some truth to that. But even this roster as they are, they still have had better efforts than this, but maybe it's just a consistency thing. With this roster, the margin for error is so small. It's too small to kind of have the kind of performance they need to have consistently. I think there might be something to that. Amanda Tanev talking about the need to simplify their game. Yeah, definitely. I think that is something they absolutely need to do. It was part of their success when they were playing earlier, was they were simplifying their game. They were going in, they were forechecking, they were getting shots from the point, and they were getting traffic to the net. Very simple things. And I think they did overcomplicate stuff. Really, the last couple games, they were kind of chasing the game and overcomplicating things. Zoe asking how much of the goals were on bad defense and how much is Joey. The stat card was not kind to the defense. Montour, Larson, and Dunn at the bottom. I think in the second half of the game, the defending certainly left a lot to be desired. The first goal, I mean, I can kind of just break it down. The first goal, there was and it really, I wouldn't even credit so much to the defense, is just feeding the transition for the Senators. And I think that was the problem on a couple of the goals. But the first goal is there's a turnover at the offensive blue line by Ty Karche. And so Shane Pinto is able to bring the puck back up, but it's being defended well. Like, the defensemen are in the right spots. Ryan Winterton has his arms all over Shane Pinto. Like, that is a shot that you will let happen every single time. And that's a shot your goalie and Joey Decord is going to have 99% of the time. Like, it's just a very simple shot from a low danger area. That one's on Joey. He has to stop that. He knows he has to stop that. If you look at his reaction on the broadcast immediately after, like, he knows that was a really bad goal. And so that just is what it is. The second one, it's like there's a pass across there that ideally you don't let through, but the goalie still has time to get square to it. Joey's still square to it. And that's one, again, where I think, he doesn't see it. I mean, he has a clear line of sight, but he doesn't end up seeing it all that clearly, and he just misses the puck. So I'd say that one kind of on Joey as well. And then the third one, that's a breakaway. I don't blame Joey at all. That's bad defense, but really it's the turnover at the far blue line. Like I was talking about, feeding the transition. That's Mitchell Stevens at the far blue line. I believe it was Stevens turning that puck over. Dunn gets a little bit aggressive. Montour gets a little bit aggressive, and you have those two offensive defensemen on the ice. You're both chasing the game, and it leads to a breakaway again. So that's kind of my breakdown on the 3 Ottawa goals. Not the best game from Joey, and especially with the first one being a real deflating type of goal. That's one he wants back, and that is one you look at goaltending a little bit. Of course, you get shut out. It's never fully the goalie's fault, but that's kind of my breakdown, I think, on the defense versus goaltending on the goals. So thank you for the super chat, by the way, Zoe, and for giving me the chance to kind of break that all down. Blue-White Flame. The amazing thing is this team is still in the playoff hunt. I just don't know how the team capitalizes on it. Yeah, they're certainly not out of it. There's enough season left, but as I said on the podcast, as I said on post games, there's a certain point where 500 goes from being mid to being bad, and we are fast approaching that time. And the Kraken are now under 500. There seems like a clear top 8 in the West, and it's going to take a lot to break into that top 8. The Kraken are, I think, 4 points out of a playoff spot. Every loss like this, it's going to add another point or two to how far you are out. I mean, the Kraken, very well could be 6 points out by the time they play their next game. It's just going to keep adding up if you don't keep pace. I think the Blue-White Flames, speaking of the Flames, I think they've won tonight if they held on to that score. So, there's a lot of other teams that are gaining ground as well. Stratic asking, has any team been shut out as much as the Kraken this season? Viren quickly saying yes. Yay, not the worst. So that's good. Tied with New Jersey, New York Islanders, Nashville, and Utah with 5. Okay. So, but tied for worst, I'm guessing. So 5 times shutout. That's not good. Let's see. Jenna, Ryan Donato had the game-winning goal in Chicago, who we play Thursday. He's fired this season. He scored 2 minutes later. Yeah, I do miss those guys. Donato especially. I don't know how many goals he has now, like 11 or something, but he probably would be at least tied for the Kraken team lead. But yeah, the Kraken play Chicago next. It'll be interesting because they've had a good couple games. I believe I read a stat earlier today saying that Chicago has not won 3 games in a row since February of 2023. It's been a long time, like over a year. So we'll see if they can get that 3-game win streak, which would be their first in a while. Kraken need that win. They absolutely need that win next game. Let's see. Sean, that play down comment is nonsense. Ottawa is not bad. And moreover, who are the Kraken to view any other team as bad? I mean, you can ignore how good a team is when you talk about just how good the opponent is or not. But I do think Ottawa is a step down from, say, Tampa. Like I do think there is a step down there. But I'm with you on the sentiment of, yeah, the Kraken, again, we're asking that question. Are they one of the bad teams? Are they one of the, at least, one of the mid teams? So I understand that question. Edward in the first, this one felt like whichever team solved the opposing goalie first was probably going to win. Thought it would still be a fight to the end, though. Disappointing. Yeah, I will say, even when it was 2-0, even at the intermission, I told Jeff Baker, I was talking to him, I said I still had a hunch that it was kind of a next goal wins type of game. And I think if the Kraken had just solved Ullmark once to get within 1, it could have been a different game, but they were never really close to doing that. Dave, please tell Mike Benton what the Kraken issues are with the game. Was on Twitter. It's just frustrating. I mean, I think after every game he says, "Send me your Kraken tweets." He puts out a tweet saying, "Kind of let me know what you're thinking," and he kind of talks about it on the post game show. Mike Benton's a sharp guy, so and I know he listens to what fans think. So Christian agreeing on the net front presence. Draybert Ullmark is 7-0-1 in his last 8 with a .956 save percentage. The Sens might have a goalie for once. Sure looks like it. He's been great. Yeah, I mean, we could see it tonight. Like, he was on top of his game, but there's still things you can do to get to a goalie who's playing like that. Bryce, is it me or did Joey seem a bit stiff tonight? I think, yeah, he did look a bit stiff. He was a little off for sure. Blue-White Flame Kraken need a superstar forward, someone who can score at will. They do. It's very difficult to get those players. Scott asking, how long is Gord supposed to be out? I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back next game. He's still day-to-day, but he has been skating. He has been working out with that lower body injury. So he's close. He's close to coming back. So it shouldn't be too much longer on Yanni Gordon. I think the Kraken really needed him. I mean, in this game, when they were just reeling after that first goal they allowed, Dylan said maybe they should call a timeout. I was saying, okay, what you want to do, usually in that situation where you just need one long shift in the offensive zone to kind of swing the momentum, put out the Yanni Gord line. That's what you've done all season, but you can't. You can't put out the Yanni Gord line because he's not healthy. So I think he really would have helped in this one. Unfortunately, I don't have him. Brooke got my blank jersey customized with Montour at the Tampa game. At least Montour has been doing well. Yeah, he's been doing great. I mean, he's been maybe the Kraken's best player, arguably their most consistent player. He's been fantastic. I think that's a really good choice. He's got the term on the contract. He's a fun guy too. He's going to be a fan favorite. I think you can't go wrong with a Brandon Montour jersey. Shado, right? Any tips for coping with the Stevenson contract? So depressing to think about. I mean, let's think. I don't know. I've been struggling with it myself. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask. I mean, there's always the buyout tool on Puckpedia if that's your thing. Um, and yeah, Kylie pointing out that yeah, the shutouts were from each of Ottawa's goalies, so they both got one. Bryce saying Wenberg over Chandler. I said as much on the podcast. I do think it is a downgrade. Jenna curses are real. The windows, by the way, the window fabric thing got worse this game. It was just the one window that the fabric that wouldn't work over the one window up until this game, and then this game, they all look messed up. I posted a picture on social media. Like it's bad. So I hope they get that sorted. See. Kylie, whom I don't remember Wenberg having 18 assists and 21 points this early in the season. He didn't score to the level Stevenson did, but I think he was still more of a net positive. And of the production, I know I brought this up a number of different ways, but and the standings may have changed after I looked at it because I didn't take tonight's games into account. But you know how many of those 21 points are against teams in the top half of the NHL? One. He's scored a lot against bad teams. That's for sure, but we just haven't really seen the production against good teams. So, and bottom feeder Merchant a little bit. Stratic saying light a prayer candle for the Stevenson deal. And then B, yeah, unfortunately not Joey's best night. What was weird to me is that I felt like he made basically all the high danger saves and let in the soft ones. Even so, you're never going to win without goals. I'd agree with that. You look at the ones he let in; those are ones he wants back. But he made some really good saves. There was one where Ottawa had the shorthanded 2-on-1, and it was a great chance, and they were able to bring the puck back across Joey's body, and he made the save. Like fantastic one there. Like he wasn't all around bad. He made some great saves. Just unfortunately, kind of a couple soft ones that he's going to want back. Kyle saying Eddie O would have been losing his you-know-what over turnovers at the blue line. Yeah, probably. Michael here with the super chat. Thank you, Michael. Sorry, not game related. After listening to the deep dive, I want to pitch in for Christmas gifts too. Here is something for Dylan and RJ to get t-shirts with Chandler Stevenson's face on it. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate that. And hope you like the last podcast episode. It was so fun for Dylan and I making that one, trying to come up with holiday gifts for all the Kraken players. Dylan and I had an absolute blast doing that. So appreciate you chipping in for the Christmas gifts, Michael. Thank you so much. And yeah, I don't know if we'll get the t-shirts with Chandler Stevenson's face on it, but maybe that's a way of coping as well, in addition to lighting the prayer candle. But thank you so much for the super chat there, Michael. That was good. Brought me a laugh. Super chat here from Jessica. Man, what to say after that stinkeroo. The Trapper hat is cool, but my head is wet, so it's not very outdoorsy. Yeah, I was wondering how waterproof they might be because I figured people would find that out pretty soon. It was a very rainy day. I think the rainiest day Seattle's had in over a year. So I got, my suit got a little soaked walking in, and yeah, the hat seemed like maybe it would help, but I wasn't sure if the oven mitt from earlier this year was anything to go by. Probably not that robust. I think the oven mitt's only certified for temperatures up to like 170 degrees or something, like not that hot. So, the Trapper hat being that way maybe doesn't surprise me, but they look cool. They definitely do look cool. Thank you for the super chat there, Jessica. As we head back down into chat, scrolling back down, taking a peek for Dylan. I don't see him yet, so I wonder if this is going to be one of those longer ones. Wonder if Bilesma was maybe talking to the team. We'll see when we see him. Amanda, how different do we think this season will be looking with Eberle healthy? I think there would be a noticeable difference. I think there are certain games, maybe not this one, but certain games where he would help drive some more offense. I think he fixes a lot of things on the lines. He allows you to, I think, to have, maybe Jared McCann on the line, not with Chandler Stevenson. He kind of allows you to do different things. So I think it would be looking a little bit different. I think also leadership, especially in a game like this, might have helped because we saw Eberle earlier this season leading by example and going to the net, establishing a net front presence. And I got to think as a leader, he would see what was going on and at least try and get net front, try and lead by example there. So I think it would be fairly different, but injuries happen to everybody. They're a part of the season. Unfortunately, that was a bad one. Let's see. David, I mean, Joey is a good goalie, but asking him to be great all the time is probably a bit much. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to put amazing performances up for you every single game. Goaltending is hard to predict, and it's so hard to be consistent over a whole season. Every goalie's going to have some stinkers of a game. It happens, right? And even starters, even really good goalies have games like that. And so, I don't want to be too negative on Joey. It's just, I think he'd be the first to tell you he could have been better in this one. There's a couple that he'd want back. It's just a bad game, but it's not that big a deal because it hasn't really been a trend or a habit with him. So, Stratic, they're actually kind of out of the playoff race at this point, unless the team starts playing 700 hockey. I need to do math, but I don't think it's good. I had been meaning to do the math on that to see kind of what pace they needed to play at to get to, say, 95 points. And I hadn't had the chance to do it yet. I was working on a couple other things, but if anyone kind of has that, you can throw it in chat and let me know. But the Kraken are going to have to play at a pretty good pace to get back in the playoff hunt for real. Brooke, where do we think Borgen will go? If we're looking for teams that are a fit for Will Borgen, and it's not a given that he's going to be traded, but I think probably not on the team beyond this season. For me, at the trade deadline, I think Dallas would be a really good fit. That's the team that I was looking at the Armchair GM stream. That's the team that I think is the best fit because they're only really 3 defensemen deep. They could use another depth defenseman on the right side. His physical game, again, I still like Will Borgen, and so I'll be the Bill Borgen defender. I think his game is one that's going to be a lot better in the playoffs because there's certain things that he does physically that, and I think perfect example of it tonight, his penalty net front. I forget who he hauled down, but he took a penalty in front of the Kraken net tonight. And I turned to Dylan and I said, that's not a penalty in the playoffs. And he's like, you're right. It's not. That's the kind of play. That's just good defense in the playoffs. But in the regular season, it's a penalty. And I think Will Borgen knows that. And so he kind of has to tone down the physicality. But come playoff time, he can be a really valuable piece. And I think Dallas would probably be the perfect fit in my mind. And then Brooke, yeah, I love Borgie. I'll miss him so much. Again, I'll miss him too if they do move on from him. So again, I've been a Will Borgen defender from year one. But I do think, especially with this contract being up, it might make some sense. Christian Borgen is the only big guy we have that will use his body. I think he does it. He hasn't done it as much this season, and that's been a little disappointing. But I do think, yeah, he's the guy who at times has used his body the most, right? That Alexiak, that's not really his game. Larson, that's not really his game, but it is Will Borgen's game. And I would like to see him do it more, except I just feel like the penalty tonight probably isn't going to encourage him, but I kind of want him to find that line and play a little bit more physical. And that's why I think, again, with the scratch, it's not necessarily something negative against Will Borgen. I just think he could benefit from a reset. Like, I think that reset, it was good for Shane Wright. It was good for Oliver Bjorkstrand. I think the same thing could happen for Will Borgen if they approach it that way. See. Kylie, injuries hurt us this season for sure. Losing so many again with Dunn out put us behind, then losing Eberle and now Gord and the bug going around too. Yeah, I can't wait for whatever bug is going through the room to kind of just be over, because you're always wondering how much that's affecting everybody. And I imagine it's the answer is still not 0 at this point. Let's see. Joey, Brandon Montour is my favorite defenseman. That's a good pick for a favorite defenseman. Brandon Montour is great. Paul asking, what would we have to package to get rid of Stevenson? That is hard to say. A lot. A really good prospect or a first round pick probably is the start. It's not good. Viran, I'm actually sort of impressed that Stevenson has so many power play points given their struggles there. Like, he has been pretty solid on the power play. He's made some good passes. He's been a good facilitator with the extra man. I'll give him that. Edward, Montour, Stevenson. One looks great signing. The other one contract looks like an albatross. The NHL 500 of free agency. I guess it is. That is pretty 500. You hit on one, you miss on the other. Let's see. See. Oh, and we've got Dylan here. Dylan's getting ready. He is ready to go. So let's add him. Hey, Dylan. How's
Hey,
it going? Hey, good to be back.
yeah. I mean, it was nice to be back. It was nice to hang with you, watch the game. It's good to have company for the game, considering how everything went. But yeah, I would have liked a goal maybe.
Yeah, a goal would have been nice in your return to action here at Climate Pledge. But I think we all want to know what was the reaction from Coach Dan and from the players after this one. Uh, After a game like this, it feels like it's either something really short or, maybe a little bit more prolonged answers waiting. What was the feel after this one?
It was extremely short. Got done with Montour and McCann in like 2.5 minutes. Like it was very brief, very quick. I mean, most notable thing, McCann agreeing that need to go to the net more. That's the place where you got to get something. You got to get in front of Olmark. You got to, be there for a rebound. You just got to go to the net more, and they didn't tonight. It's basically the most notable thing to come from that. And then I do think the quote of the night did come from Dan, and that was he was kind of asked about, look, you guys were playing great through that Boston game. Hit this Tampa game. That Tampa game hit tonight. What's going on, right? Right. Like, and the quote he gave that I thought was the best was he talked about how they need to have that desperation they were playing with creep into their game consistently, and they need to have that kind of, he didn't say come back, but he was implying that they need to play the way they did when they went on that road trip where they were a desperate team, right? They dropped 3 games in a row to bad opponents. They needed to go out there and win to stay in things and not fall too far below 500. They were able to carry that over from the road trip back here for a couple games, but the Tampa game didn't look like the same team. They weren't able to go out there and really dictate things. They weren't able to have that full, 55, 60-minute effort and everything that we've seen from them. You look at the game tonight, talked about it. They were kind of able to dictate things in the first period, not able to get anything past Olmark. And then the second period, everything just kind of unravels for them. And they were just never able to get it back. And so I think that it's one of those, it feels in some ways very similar to after that home loss here to the Sharks, where it was just like, okay, we have to hit this next level every single night if we want to hang with really anybody in this league.
Yeah, and that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier in the post game is just that maybe the margin for error is so small given what this team is that they have to play the absolute best of their potential in order to consistently win, and that's really hard to do for 82 games. And so, I was wondering how long we might see with this. Now, one thing that was not really talked about directly but kind of hinted at after the Tampa game was that maybe the guys were still feeling the effects of the bug that's going around. Basically, they didn't have their skating legs, is how Dan Bilesma said it. But I think we can kind of read between the lines there. Was there any indication of that after this one? Did anyone refer to that, or it was just disappointment with the effort? They know they need to be better.
Yeah, no, it was just kind of disappointment with the effort. I think that was really what it was.
Yeah.
It's still possible that is going on, and that's the way things are going. But nobody was going to look to make an excuse for tonight, I think.
And then for me, the turning point in this game, I thought, with the effort, and this is why I don't necessarily buy that they're, totally tired or out of gas, is because in the first period, they looked okay. They were
Mhm.
hanging with the Senators just fine. And then that first goal happens, and the team was just lifeless after that point. Was it talked about at all? I mean, obviously nobody's going to kind of throw the goalie under the bus there with the goal, but was that as a turning point talked about at all, and kind of the momentum shift with that goal being given up?
Yeah, Dan was kind of asked about that a little bit. I think the wording that was settled on for everything came from Darren Brown of Sound of Hockey, which was uncharacteristic goal from Joey Decord there.
Very diplomatic, Darren. Good
Very,
job.
very diplomatic, yes. But it was, Dan did talk about how really just the second period, they were having a struggle kind of dictating the game again. They were having, issues kind of battling with Ottawa back and forth. And then that goal goes in. and it just compounds everything. And now, again, it's time to get desperate. It's time to dig deep. It's time to go out there and respond, and they just weren't able to.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. So there's been some interesting conversation in here about, I mean, the team and how realistic the playoffs are. There's been a lot of bigger picture stuff too. People ask about Chandler Stevenson, what it would take to move him, all that stuff. And as Kylie pointing out, he's got a no move clause the first 4 years. He's not going anywhere, certainly if he doesn't want to. So it's just not realistic. But I will say, people, if you have something that you want to say, throw it into the bottom of chat. I'm going to scroll down here toward the bottom again, get some of the newer messages. So if you put something in there that I skipped over, just throw it back into chat and we'll go ahead and get to it. And everyone's saying hi, Dylan. They're happy that you're back. Asking where you are. So I'm up in the press bridge. You are near the last row of the stands, and you can see, there you go. You can see the ice.
I just can't really kind of hunch down, so I gotta keep it a little high up. But the ice is
make sure you're taking care of your back. Don't worry about that. Just make sure that you're doing okay. But as I look down here into chat,
I mean, I can talk about some stuff while you catch up there. I don't know if you've talked about it, but I do wonder, and I do kind of want to ask you this, RJ, because I was kind of brainstorming this in the third period, watching it all. How much of this do you think, because this is their second time losing to Ottawa 3-0 this season, how much of it do you think is just a matchup against this team? I were kind of noticing, especially on the PK, the kind of weird structure that Ottawa plays with, looking at them 5-on-5, they kind of have an odd structure to it where, it's, I won't even say that they have much structure. They very much feel like a team that kind of plays around their structure.
It's so cool. I love it.
They're willing to cheat up. And so I was kind of wondering about that on Discord towards the end of the game. I'd like your opinions on it, because I do think, you can be a team like Ottawa where you are looking to get breakaways. You're looking to get up the ice quick. You're going to cheat in the defensive zone and see if you can get away with it. I do wonder how much, we know the Kraken aren't always the most efficient team when it comes to passing or handling things in the offensive zone. How much of this do you think is just like a weird matchup thing where they're playing a team that is willing to take big risks, willing to go after the puck hard in the defensive zone and try to get up the ice quickly, and the Kraken being a team that maybe struggles a little bit with that efficiency that you would normally be able to then pick them apart, take advantage of them being too aggressive. Kraken, at least right now, when they're in one of kind of these moods, for lack of a better word, they're not really a group to kind of take advantage of that. Instead, any turnovers that were forced just kind of went right back the other way. And we saw Ottawa was able to really capitalize on almost all of their goals that way.
Right, and that did result in a lot of Ottawa goals, but I don't think it's a matchup thing. Maybe there's an element to it. Maybe Ottawa matches up well against the Kraken, but they're certainly a beatable team. I don't buy it for a few different reasons. First, talking about with their weird looking PK and all of that, I think that maybe does match up well against the Kraken. They weren't really sure how to deal with that. But on the flip side of it, that whistling's been going on for a while. But on the flip side of it, the Kraken PK, I think, matches up really well against what Ottawa was trying to do. And so special teams just kind of weren't really a factor. And then you look at the Senators' goals. I don't think they were able to generate all that much off of yes, you have the far blue line turnover with Karche leading to the first Sens goal, but that's a shot Joey stops 99% of the time. That isn't something that consistently goes in. And same thing with the second goal. And by the third, when you're chasing the game already, I don't know that there really is much of that. And in the first period, there wasn't that. This was a clear line in this game after that first goal where the Kraken just ran out of life. It was two different Kraken teams, and I don't think the matchup has anything to do with it.
Maybe it doesn't. It's just, it feels like to me that this started before that goal started, right? I think the Kraken hit a wall prior to the goal. The goal comes because the Kraken are already trying to do too much. I mean, that's what it looked like on really all of these, right? The feeding transition. They're trying to do too much in the offensive zone. You get these turnovers that allows Ottawa to get up the ice. Yes, Joey's got to make a save there, right? I'm not going to discount that. But it wasn't like the Kraken were playing well 5-on-5 leading up to that first goal anyway. They weren't generating the chances they generated in the first period. They were getting outshot at that point in the second period. I don't know. There has to be something there.
Right, but you look at what was missing in the first period, really throughout the whole game when they got offensive zone time. What was it? It was net front presence, right?
Yeah. But they were also making
You
passes in the
yourself
first.
said to me during the game, though, that Ottawa's not hard to box out. They
No,
will
yes,
initiate
they're not a
contact.
good
You can
physical
get
team.
inside on them. They're not that physical of a team. That's not a matchup thing. That's just a will thing. The matchup is actually favorable to getting a net front presence. They just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, no, again, it comes from the deficiency of the Kraken, like I said, right? When they're in one of their moods or
When
in
they're
one
in
of
one of their moods, I'll give
their
you that. Yeah.
problems where they just cannot make a pass to each other for anything, right? It
But
totally
who are
feeds
they
into
beating
a team
like
like Ottawa.
that?
Well, yeah,
It
fair.
feeds into what Ottawa does, but I don't think they're beating very many teams at all if
No.
they're in one of their moods like that.
Yeah, but yes, I mean, Ottawa is just not a big team. They're a physical team, but they're not a big team. They're not a strong team. You look at their blue line, and the Kraken forwards look bigger than just about everybody out there who was playing defense for Ottawa. You not being able to get net front is a serious problem. I think that's where, again, Jared McCann touched on it. Yeah, it's something we got to do, right? Gave the answer. I don't know. It's just one where I feel like it just comes back around to consistency. And this is why, we were saying, or at least I was saying, a week ago or whatever, after one of those games where it was like, I'm not totally willing to buy in while the Kraken were on that road trip just because I got to see them string together like 10 games of this. And it just feels like we're back to one of those things where they can get it together for 4 or 5 games, but anything more than that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a hesitation I kind of had too. We haven't seen them string that together, and I think that is concerning at this point. So sorry, I did kind of again lose the chat here with all the debate with you, Dylan. So I'm trying to kind of find the next talking point. Mason asking, is it worth at that point just going to a dump and chase game and just trying to match their speed?
Yes.
Yes, I mean it's a simple adjustment that you make.
I mean, again, you've been having success with that. That's partly how they've been able to dictate play, has been through the dump and chase. Dump it in, go in hard on the forecheck, right? All the stuff I talked about with Ellie Tolvanen and how he's really helped make that third line work, that Shane Wright line work with that aggressive forecheck. We've talked about the other lines starting to adapt to it as well, and having different guys on those lines being able to do it. I think absolutely this is an example of a time where the dump and chase would have really helped this group out because it would have initiated some of that physicality. You're taking advantage of a not great blue line from Ottawa, where now all of a sudden they're put in a spot where they have to make a play with pressure. You never did that at all to them in this game. Who does Ottawa have on the back end that you really trust to make a good play under pressure consistently? Not really anybody, right? So these are all those kinds of situations where that's exactly what they were doing on the road trip. That's exactly what they were doing through the Florida and Boston game and what they've lost through this Tampa game and especially tonight against Ottawa. And again, that's just a consistency thing, right? Whether it's they get complacent, whether they just aren't feeling it that night, I don't know what it is. But until you find a way that you can play that way consistently, because those are the ways you dictate the pace of play. And I know everybody hates the dump and chase, but it is a way in which you can dictate play. Until you can do that, that's the only time we've seen them win.
Yeah, that has been the blueprint. It's the only way that they've had success. And I do wonder how much missing Yanni Gourde really hurts with that, because that really feeds into kind of what he likes to do as well. I think they were really missing him from the lineup tonight. And I see we got a super chat here from Dave. Thank you so much, Dave, for the super chat. I don't see a message along with it. So if you want to put something, just throw that into chat. Let us know. But thank you there for the super chat, Dave. And then I see some questions too. We had earlier ones about the lineup. I think people are totally with you on the Will Borgen needs to sit for a bit. Sima asking, who else do you think will be benched besides Borgen? And I kind of want to ask this to you from a larger perspective as far as the lineup. I can't imagine the lineup will be the same for the next game. What changes would you make if you were Dan Bilesma?
Hope that Yanni's healthy and that you can add him back into the lineup. I mean, that would be really nice.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, I think that would be the thing that I would do. Look, the bottom line is, right, you need to play more physical. I don't know that you have somebody waiting in the wings right now that's going to help you do that. I mean, maybe you could call up John Hayden to do that, but he's going to play realistically like 8 or 9 minutes for you on the fourth line. I don't think that helps change the identity of the team and gets everybody going in that way. That's really what you're looking for. Like, again, what this team needs, because really thinking about what Yanni Gourde does that has made that first line work, thinking about what Ellie Tolvanen kind of does, but particularly Yanni Gourde and how he's been able to help get Matty Beniers going, because I see there's talk about Matty there. There's talk about Matty on the Discord. all Yanni Gord's doing is essentially playing like a power forward, right, RJ? Like he's going in, he's entering the zone on the outside, he's coming in about halfway down, and then he just makes a beeline straight to the net, and he just disrupts what the defense is doing, forces them to collapse in, opens up space for Maddie to operate in the high slot area. That's it. Like you just need somebody basically to just do that. And Yanni Gord's proving that you don't have to be the biggest guy in the world to go out there and play that power forward kind of game. But the Kraken need more guys doing that, because if you had somebody doing that tonight, you get a goal and Olmark does not get a shutout, right? You might still lose the game, right? Whatever. But you're not getting shut out tonight if you had at least one person on one of those lines doing that consistently.
Yeah, it's a classic power forward game. And Estradic says here, I hate to come off like a hockey meathead, but the team does need to get bigger and stronger up front, among other things. I know that is kind of the classic hockey men, old school hockey men refrain of you got to get big, you got to get strong. And it's not always the answer, the be all end all to everything, but there's a reason that it is kind of a cliche, right? You do need that size up front somewhere. And the
Right.
Kraken just don't really have it, and they haven't had it for a long time, really, maybe ever.
And I do think, like, obviously the size helps, and it helps you do it more consistently, and it adds the durability factor, right? Because like I said, Yanni Gord's getting it done. Nobody's going to say Yanni Gord's one of the bigger guys in the NHL, right? Like, so but Yanni Gord is out injured right now, right? Like that's what the size allows you to do, is it allows you to play 82 games of that style without getting hurt. But I think there is just some of it is just a mentality thing, because I do think as the NHL has become more speed based, more transition based, more skill based, I do think there's a role where you can do that and go in. And now that, they take cross checking seriously, now that a lot of the penalties that they call are called again, and you don't have hooking and grabbing and clutching and holding on to guys allowed net front, I don't think you need to be as big as you used to be. Like, I don't think you need a Pat Maroon size person to go and be like your power forward for you. It's become more of just about who's willing to go in there and who can then disrupt things net front so that the defense has to take them seriously. Size definitely helps in that, but I think a lot of it just comes down to who can be a pest. And Yanni Gord can obviously be a pest. They need to find more guys on the lineup that can do that.
Right. It's a willingness thing. And the super chat on that from Dave, I did leave a message here. I feel bad for you, Dylan and RJ, for having to not only watch this game, but follow it up with a post game live. I mean, at the end of the day, we still do get to watch hockey and talk about it for a living, which is a pretty darn cool thing to do. And we get to enjoy this with everybody. So, even after the worst of games, I still feel grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I don't have an issue doing this at all. I still enjoy it. I love talking about the team, and I love obviously spending the time with everybody in chat.
Yep. No, the worst I just feel about is for your back, having to push it through this one, but glad you were able to do it for this game. And then, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I see Blue Light Flame. What is this team's identity? It's exactly what we were talking about. The only thing that's brought them success is to go in, dump it in, go to work, and just simplify. I think they have gotten away from that. And then Zoe asking, what is your take on the Dunn Montour pairing? I'm not a huge fan of them putting it out when the team is looking for additional offense. They did get burned on that third goal with Dunn and Montour out there, both of them getting really aggressive. And then, of course, the blue line turnover, it leads to a breakaway. It makes sense on paper, of course. You're down a couple goals. You put your two offensive juggernaut defensemen out there. What do you think about that one? You will get burned sometimes, but do you like that pair or not?
I'm fine with it. And it's one of those, like, I wouldn't let what happened tonight, scare you off from trying it again. But it is a desperate play, right? Pairing those two guys up together on the blue line. That's you're doing that because you absolutely have to get something going and do something there. I wouldn't give them like 22 minutes a night with each other. I don't think that would be good or anything, but I do think late in a game, I'm all for it. I mean, look, we've talked about putting them both out there on a power play together and having two defensemen on the power play and letting them kind of go to work there. I thought that they were both able to generate some chances late once you had the net empty. So, I think there was still some good stuff there despite that, the third goal there, which, I mean, that was also still like Mitchell Stevens was kind of really involved with a lot of the turnover on that one too.
Yeah, and I mentioned that one kind of breaking down the goal earlier on in this one. And the way I see it, as far as the Dunn Montour pairing, it's kind of the light pre version of pulling your goalie, where you're just
Yeah.
getting really risky with it on the blue line. And you're more likely than not to get scored on. Same with pulling your goalie, but you're down 2 goals. You need something to happen, and it just didn't work out for them there. And then Dave with the super chat here. Let's celebrate the new ECH sponsor for the deep dive. This, my friends, is a win. Yeah, appreciate that one, Dave, and appreciate Law Offices of Rico Tessendor for sponsoring the deep dive. Love having him on board. I mean, he's a Kraken season ticket holder. I mean, he's a big fan of what we do here at ECH. Wanted to be part of the community, so appreciate that from you, Dave, and appreciate our sponsor.
Yeah, definitely. Love having him on board with the deep dive. Just, great the way he reached out to us and being able to talk with him and go through that process. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, it's always great. It's just getting that message, somebody reaching out to you who wants to help support you and that loves what you do and that listens to the pod.
Yeah.
So that's really great. And then Jason saying The Athletic had a preseason article about NHL teams that showed the Kraken were the second smallest team in the NHL by collective height and weight. That might be a problem. Also, Alexiak was the heaviest and second tallest player, so I'm sure he did bring that number up. But yeah, it is. We talked plenty about the size and kind of what that brings, but some numbers to kind of back that up as well. Kraken are one of the smaller teams in the league.
Yeah, and again, you can get away with that if you're going to have guys that still play with that tenacity, despite missing the size, and they just don't have a lot of that.
Yeah, and as Brooke brought up earlier in this one too, that really Will Borgen historically has kind of been their only big guy that actually plays with the physicality that matches that size.
Yeah.
So Mason, RJ injector optimism in all of us. I'm trying to remember when I said something optimistic as that.
It was when you were talking about the community, I think.
Oh yes, okay, I got it. Yes,
that it is easy to be optimistic about.
Exactly. Yeah, no, the community is easy to be optimistic about. That never gives us the whatever the community equivalent of getting shut out 3-0 is. I don't think that's ever happened to us, so that's very easy. Let's see. Someone where was it? Schultz suggesting Borgen for Kako. Would you do it?
I would do that. Absolutely.
I would certainly do it. I think you'd have to add quite a bit, but
yeah,
I would certainly take that straight up 1 for 1. Maddie, I'm just glad Dylan to Seattle 2024 came true. Me too.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been a really fun time being able to do this, being able to go down on a night like tonight and do the media thing and talk to them, talk to Dan and all that kind of stuff. Like it's still has that like fresh new feeling for me.
Yeah. And then Mason saying nobody joining the live stream would be the equivalent, I guess, of getting shut out. I suppose, yeah, that really would be if nobody joined. Yes. But even just having some people, and I remember when we started out, remember how we were so excited to hit like 20 or 30 concurrent viewers? Like it's always been a thrill as long as there's been people with us. And then Kyle asking Dylan and RJ, any concerns about Dan leaving Canada to languish with Stevenson? I'm starting to question the wisdom. I know you questioned the wisdom a while ago. Does that need to change?
Yeah, right, I mean, I think it's always kind of needed to change. I just don't know what the change should be, right? Like I've said that it should change. I just don't know where else to put him in the lineup realistically because other things were working, right? Like it's if you were to ask me what's the one thing I think will happen and change before the game in Chicago on Thursday, it would probably be that. Just to try to get him going again, it would be him popping up on Maddie's line. Maybe Turbo goes down to Stevenson's line, and you kind of run with it that way. If I had to like bet money, that seems like the safe bet to go out there and go with.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the way it would go. And then I've seen from David, so far the Kraken's identity has been a team that comes at you in waves with 4 good lines and fights and has good enough goaltending to wear you down. I think that's well said. Like that's a good summing up of what the Kraken's identity is when they're playing well. Fusion Mix, the Kings need skill guys, the Kraken need big dudes. If only in-division trades weren't frowned on by most GMs.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, they would kind of balance each other out, I think, those two teams.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I can't see them doing business with each other.
No, I can't either. And especially from the positions each are in, where the Kraken are desperate, the Kings are totally fine. They don't need to make a deal. That's usually when you get fleeced, when you're desperate and the other team isn't. And then Knights don't care about that in division trading. They can't be the only ones. I mean, they are the only ones in a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're willing to just do whatever. They're a whole different animal.
Yeah. Prospect question for you here from Jason. Any chance of getting a glimpse of Catton in the NHL this year if we're eliminated?
This year, no, I don't think that that's going to be realistic at all. I think they'll let him kind of do what he's going to do at Major Junior. One of the things, though, that I want to talk about tomorrow on the prospect chat is the idea of, do we see Catton perhaps next year, just because he has nothing left to prove at the CHL level. He is just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what growth is supposed to really happen with him continuing to play with the Chiefs, or really in the WHL at all, even if he was to get traded or something like that. So I do wonder about him coming up next year. He won't be, Coachella Valley eligible. He'd have to be on the Kraken roster. It'll just probably come down to size concerns, right? And how big he is. He's not going to ever be big, though. So I got to think that you could probably look past that and say, look, kid's just fast. He can make plays. Let's bring him in. I would love to see the Kraken do something like that. Maybe take the Leo Carlson approach that the Ducks took last year with him, where they were just like, look, here's the game plan. We're going to pick and choose which games you play, and you're going to play like 40 games for us this year. But you're going to be with the big club. You're going to be going through the day-to-day processes of being an NHL pro. You're going to be out there with us practicing each and every night. You're going to be hanging out with us in the press box on the nights you're not playing. We're going to talk to you, teach you, guide you, right? Similar to what they did those 3 games with Shane Wright. And then, have Berkeley Catton ready to go for his then second season in the NHL. I don't see really too much downside there, because I got to think that having him play half a season of NHL hockey is going to do more for his development based on where he's at right now than letting him play another full season of WHL hockey, where he already is just doing everything that he possibly can, and he's not being challenged at all.
I agree with you there. And as Drabert says, the NHL CHL agreement strikes again. I know that is rough for players' development sometimes. And I do want to mention, though, I want to, that's some good prospect chat, of course. And there's going to be a lot more of that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Dylan's prospect chat. You can all join him and talk Kraken prospects, Berkeley Catton, and all the rest. And then the next day for the Kraken's next game, actually, it's ECH live commentary. So you can watch the game along with me, Dylan, with the ECH community. It's a lot like this. We've got the chat going and everything. We have a real good time for the game. So that's coming up in the next 2 days. We've got both of those. And if you're considering giving it a try, there's a free 7-day free trial to the Patreon where you can sign up, get those 7 days for free. Check out Dylan's prospect chat. Check out the ECH live commentary. See if you like it. See if it's for you. If not, you can just let the free trial end. It won't cost you anything. But we'd love to see a lot of you there for that. So I wanted to make sure to give that a plug here. And we got a super chat from Kitty B Kraken here. We're okay as long as the fans keep showing up, and we have RJ and Dylan to commiserate with when needed. Thanks, guys. And the little cat emoji, I like that from you, Kitty B Kraken. Thank you so much for the super chat, and agreed. As long as you guys are here with us, we're doing good.
Yeah, definitely.
And then scrolling back up into chat here, I do want to get to this one from Julia. The work I had to put into making Dylan to Seattle 2024 happen. Yes, you are the real MVP, Julia. This is you. You put in a lot of work on that one. So appreciate everything that you've done and continue to do.
Yep, definitely. The MVP of that for sure.
Yep, for sure. And then Maddie, Patreon is worth every penny. Highly recommend. Thank you. Appreciate that, Maddie. Edward, the here, or is it here? I think it's AR, HEAR, if I know that correctly. All right, so I'm going to do, as we approach the hour mark, I know, Dylan, you need to rest your back. We'll do a last call here in chat. But while we're waiting for that to see if any chats come in, any more thoughts on this one? Anything specific you want to talk about? Anything from the players, the coaches, anything that I missed that you wanted to mention?
No, I mean, I think we covered it, right? It's the effort / desperation thing. It's the, how do you get back to dictating and controlling the pace of play? Got to go net front, especially if you're going to be facing a goalie who's, on a hot stretch. He had a 966 save percentage his previous couple starts coming into this one. Yeah, you got to get in front of the guy. You got to find a way to disrupt what he's doing. He's feeling it. You don't want the other goalie to be feeling it. I think we pretty much covered everything, because it's, for lack of a better word, we've been here and done that before, right? Like these are a lot of the same concerns that we had with this team a couple weeks ago when they were in this building losing to the Ducks and Sharks.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a similar situation. They need to have that gut check just like they did then. There is one more question I wanted to get to because she put it in here again, and I did skip over it earlier, even though it was a good question. It just got lost in the other stuff. From Maddie, though, talking about the line chemistry and back when we were having the conversation on McCann, should the top line chemistry take priority over other line chemistry? And that is the trade-off of maybe moving a McCann around.
It depends on one, how you view your top line from the organization, right? And, do you think that you are a one-line team where, like a Colorado Avalanche would absolutely say yes, right? They need to make sure that top line with their superstar players is absolutely out there and humming. A team like the Kraken, where you're built more around depth than any one individual line or player, I don't know, right? You're probably looking for solutions that give you three lines that can kind of play above average or play well rather than really stacking one line, having one line playing well, but then the rest of the lineup, your second and third lines are just kind of so, or they're having chemistry issues, something like that. I don't know that benefits you then as a depth team versus one that can take that other approach. Where that shifts and changes is when you look at it and you say, well, look, we've got Matty Beniers, we've got Shane Wright. At some point this season, if it continues like this, where you stay around 500 and you kind of slowly continue to fall further and further behind of the playoff picture, at some point you'll make the decision, or you should make the decision, where you start prioritizing their development for the rest of the season over anything like that. In which case, yes, you would say, what is going to be the best thing for this line? Because really what you're saying is what's going to be the best thing to finish the season strong for a Matty Beniers or for a Shane Wright.
Yeah, no, I think that is something you have to consider if things going on, continue to happen the way that they're happening. And that's, I think, a different time in the season to make that decision. In the short term, as you're trying to fix things, it's tough because I think the Kraken have at times felt like a one-line team, but that one line isn't necessarily the same each night. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what having depth is, right? And so if you have a line that's really going like the Shane Wright line right now, don't break it up. Don't do anything to mess with it. But unless a line is really going like that, then I think you shouldn't be afraid to mess with it and move stuff around. So that, I guess, be my answer. Yeah. And so then I think we'll close this thing out with this chat here from Fusion Mix. Y'all have a good night. Here's to the mid squids. May they ascend eventually.
Yep.
I think that's a good note to take us out on.
We could go with that for sure.
Yep. So I enjoyed that one. It gave me a little chuckle. So thank you everybody for joining us for another ECH Postgame Live. Chicago coming up next in a couple days, and that'll be our ECH live commentary. So the patrons can join us. We'll watch that one together, and then we will see you afterward for a postgame.
Yeah.